In the small town of Silverwood, life unfurled lazily, the air thick with the scent of blooming lilacs and damp earth after a recent rain. I am Mia Carter, a 28-year-old woman attempting to carve out my own path amidst the tangled roots of my family's legacy. From the outside, I may appear to be just another diligent worker, but beneath this seemingly ordinary facade, a storm rages, a tempest shaped by both familial love and unbearable pain. I can still picture myself as a child, standing before my bedroom mirror, my fingers running through my hair, adjusting it just so. It was during those moments that my eyes would catch my reflection, and I would see the sharp, intent gaze that mirrored my father's, Jay. His ambition filled the room like a heavy fog, entwining itself around me, smothering and invigorating all at once. "You're too much like him, you know?" I would often hear my mother, Deed, whisper under her breath when she thought I wasn't listening. But I was listening. I was always listening. Each word echoed in my mind like a refrain I couldn't shake off, layering my already heavy heart with a mark of disappointment. I was Jay's daughter, destined to be driven, to chase the horizon relentlessly, but I often felt more like a shadow in his expansive wake. My room was a mirror of my attempts to find control in a chaotic world, each item meticulously placed in its rightful spot. Twin beds adorned with quilts from my grandmother echoing the past, the drawer with its mismatched socks, all the little details I fine-tuned, trying to create order. They all represented a desperate need for approval, not only from my father but also from myself. The notion of perfection became my prison, the very thing that separated me from the warmth of human connection. "Can you just try a little harder?" I could still hear my father's commanding voice, a cacophony of high expectations that filled so many of our dinners with tension as I prepared for college. I chose my major not because it ignited my passion, but to gain Jay's approval, to meet his expectations. No matter how far I pushed, it felt like I was running towards an invisible finish line that only ever seemed to retreat further into the distance. Then there was my brother, Mitchell. My heart ached for him. He was so different from me, softer, more emotional, a bright spark with dreams woven from starlight. He navigated relationships with warmth, a quality that often seemed foreign to me. Mitchell was the apple of our mother's eye, showered with affection while I became more of an outsider, struggling to thrive in his comforting glow. I could see the way he lit up around Cam, the man he had become inexplicably drawn to. Cam had a way of weaving words together, a charm that was intoxicating but also laced with darkness. Mitchell was caught in Cam's web, and I could only watch, helpless, as he fell deeper into that troubling allure. Every family dinner had morphed into a battlefield, each meal strained with the weight of unspoken grievances buried deep inside. The clattering of plates was accompanied only by the uneasy silence of uninvited comments. Every now and then, scraps of conversation would erupt. "Why can't you be more like Mia?" Jay would bark, frustration lacing his tone, his eyes narrowing on Mitchell. "I was never good at anything, Dad." Mitchell would fire back, his voice shaky. He'd often push his pasta around his plate, his emotions simmering beneath the surface. Or worse, when whispers of Cam would come up, a flicker of panic flashing in my brother's eyes, only to be met with quiet judgment. Cam's presence often felt like a dark shadow hovering over our family, twisting conversations, guiding them into treacherous waters. I could see the way Mitchell wilted under Cam's influence. It was painful to witness. I wanted to fight back, yet I felt powerless. One fateful evening, our dining room felt smaller than usual. The air crackled, charging with the energy of frustrations and strained silences. I can still remember the flickering of the candle on the table, casting eerie shadows that made my heart race. Mitchell sat across from me, looking weary, his gaze darting towards Deed, whose chaotic presence had entwined with my brother like ivy encasing an abandoned building. "Mia," he began, the tremor in his voice slicing through the tension. "You don't see it, do you? You are just like Dad." The words struck me like a physical blow, each syllable ricocheting within the walls of my mind. I felt my heart pound against my rib cage, echoing in my ears. "What do you mean?" I snapped, masking the fear creeping into my chest with indignation. "You think I want to be like him?" "Yes," he retorted, his frustration spilling over. "You're just trying to one-up everyone, trying so hard to earn a pat on the back. Well, it's exhausting." My face heated as I struggled to contain a whirlwind of emotions. I felt the familiar pang of resentment bubble within me. It felt like he had peeled back the layers I had so carefully built around my heart, exposing my raw, vulnerable self to the unforgiving air of family judgment. I am trying to survive. I shot back, my voice trembling but fueled by the fire ignited in my gut. Do you know how hard I worked to prove myself, to break away from this? I gestured around the table. This mess we've created. I am not your problem, Mitchell yelled, his features contorted in anger. You act like you are the only one who matters. You are just another extension of Dad. Those words burrowed deep into my soul, igniting a potent mix of anger and understanding. The truth in them scorched me, awakening something dormant within, a part of me that had been quietly compiling a list of grievances since childhood. Mitchell's words settled like ashes in the pit of my stomach. I could feel my pulse quickening. At that moment, something dark and furious awakened within me. I realized then that if I wanted to save my brother from this toxic cycle that was spiraling our lives into uncertainty, I had to become the storm. If I was to break these familial bonds that had entwined us in chaos, I had to tap into the side of me that my father had instilled, the relentless determination etched into my very DNA. You don't know what I've endured, I yelled back, my heart pounding ardently in my chest. You think it's easy for me too. I fight for my place every damn day. I have to wear this mask, the one you think makes me seem just like him, but I won't. In that moment, I felt the clarity I had long sought. I understood what I had to do. Mitchell's face glistened with confusion and anger, but my heart felt steady. This was not just anger directed at him, but a catalyst that pushed me to shed the image of the perfect daughter. I won't play this game anymore. I refuse to drown in Dad's shadow or be manipulated by Cam. I'm not just Mia the daughter. I will be Mia the storm, I said, my voice firm with resolve. You need to see that the love we cling to isn't real. It's a poison that suffocates us. As I looked across the table, I saw my brother's anger give way to something softer, a glimmer of understanding. The tension in the room seemed to shift, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope that perhaps breaking away from this chaos was possible. The moment lingered before Mitchell broke the silence. What do we do? He sounded small, vulnerable. The fight had left him, leaving behind a raw honesty that was hauntingly beautiful. We dismantle it, I replied, a sense of determination coursing through my veins. One piece at a time. Ambivalence clouded his expression for a moment, but I sensed a shared resolve beginning to echo between us. It was time to forge our own paths, away from Jay's towering shadow and the poisonous grip of Cam. I was ready to channel every ounce of my father's ambition, every fear, every fleeting memory of my brother's vulnerability, into something invigorating, a chance for liberation from the chokehold of chaos. This was only the beginning. As the night deepened and the dining room faded into shadows, a sense of purpose enveloped us. We were two broken pieces ready to forge something new, and the storm that had lain dormant within me awaited its chance to break free. It was our moment of reckoning, the dawn of our resistance, a prelude to the dark dance of revenge that loomed ahead, determined to break the cycle of pain. I began plotting my course of action like a strategist preparing for battle. I needed to approach my brother carefully, to make him see the truth about Cam without overwhelming him. Each morning, as the soft light filtered through the curtains of our modest living room, I felt a blend of hope and anxiety swirling in my stomach. I knew that subtlety was my ally. I had to choose my words wisely, framing my observations as innocuous questions. It all started at the breakfast table one weekend morning. The scent of burnt toast lingered in the air, mixing with the sharp aroma of brewed coffee. Mitchell sat across from me, a tinge of weariness shadowing his typically bright blue eyes. I watched as he pushed his uneaten toast back, distracted by whatever private thoughts he harbored. I casually dipped my spoon into my bowl of oatmeal, letting the creamy texture soothe the nerves prickling beneath my skin. Mitchell, I started, feigning nonchalance, doesn't it seem like Cam just wants you to conform to his ideals? I glanced up, trying to catch his gaze. The slight twitch of his lips revealed uncertainty, urging me to dig deeper. Doesn't he ever put you down? Sometimes I think he doesn't quite get how amazing you really are. His brow furrowed, and for a moment I thought he might brush me off. I bit my lip, fear creeping in. But then his fingers tightened around the rim of his coffee mug, and he looked at me as if he was seeing something new in my face. Not really, he said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. He just wants me to be better, you know. I inhaled quietly. I had to tread carefully. Sure, wanting you to improve is one thing, but when was the last time Cam actually praised you? Did he ever tell you how proud he was of that project you worked so hard on at the office? Mitchell's expression fell, confusion swirling in his eyes. Well, I guess he didn't say it like that. It was more of a passing comment. He rubbed the back of his neck as if to soothe an ache there. But he does care. Does he? I challenged lightly, my heart pounding at the risk involved. Because sometimes it feels like he's just trying to mold you into what he wants you to be, and not respecting who you are, your true self. My voice dropped to a whisper, laden with a heavy sort of warmth that lifted my heart. He hesitated, glancing away to stare blankly at the wall. I noted the way his fingers fidgeted, the way his brow knitted together. I guess I never really thought of it that way. I just thought he was helping. As I held his gaze, I felt a storm brewing behind his eyes. That flicker of realization flickered like a spark in the dark, illuminating the thick fog that had clouded his perspective. And sometimes help can feel a lot like control, I said gently, allowing the words to linger. Do you feel but that would mean you? Then I went quiet, letting the silence stretch painfully between us like a taut rubber band. I held my breath as I observed his inner turmoil playing out on his face, the way his mouth tightened and the muscles in his jaw quivered. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the shrill sound of a text message interrupted us. It was Cam, and my brother's eyes instantly flickered down to his phone, the spell of our conversation shattering like glass. Just checking in, he said, shrugging dismissively. I should reply. I leaned back in my chair, a wave of frustration crashing over me. The conversation had cracked a small window of doubt, and suddenly the weight of my mission pressed heavily against my ribcage. I felt like a general whose troops had suddenly retreated. Okay, I replied, forcing a smile. But I can't help but wonder if deep down you are where you want to be. Just remember, I'm here for you always. Yeah, I know, he said, finally looking up again, his expression softening. Thanks. I watched him pull out his phone, fingers dancing across the bright screen, the moment vanishing like smoke. The following days were filled with small interactions just like that. I seized every opportunity to sow more seeds of doubt, always entwining my observations of Cam with questions that felt innocent on the surface. Does Cam support your dreams, Mitchell? Or does he prefer his own ideas to yours? Each text I sent, each discussion we had, was like lowering a small pebble into the glassy water of his perceptions, provoking ripples that spread wider each day. Even during family visits, I took discreet mental notes as I observed Cam's interactions. The way he brushed off my brother's opinions, turning the conversation back to himself, the lingering laughter that felt more like ridicule than joy, and the way his own needs consumed their discussions. You know, it's a shame you didn't get to go with us to the lake this summer, I mentioned one evening while we were clearing the table after dinner. Cam was busy with work, right? I just thought maybe it would have been nice for you two to get some time together without him pulling you in 100 different directions. Right, Mitchell replied, but there was something in his tone, a shift, a question lingering unarticulated in the air between us. After dinner, when everyone else had drifted into the living room, I approached our grandfather. He was a quiet observer through the chaotic ebb and flow of our family, holding an ancient wisdom that blossomed within his gentle gray eyes. Hey, can we talk? I asked, voice low, looking around to ensure no one was listening. He nodded, and we stepped outside for a moment, the evening air crisp against my skin. I want to tell you what I see happening with Mitchell and Cam, I whispered, glancing back inside at the laughter echoing through the room. It reminds me too much of how Deed and Dad used to treat us, how they treated him. I think it might be gaslighting, and I don't know how to help him see it, grandfather. He paused, his gaze turning contemplative, and I clung to the anticipation of his response. The patterns never really change, Mia. Sometimes life recycles its old wounds, but with time, those wounds can turn into scars. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully, the stubble scratching a little against his palm. Remember the story about the camping trip? How I didn't want to go. Your brother felt like he needed to show me how much he loved the outdoors, but he forgot how to listen to his own heart. Exactly, I exclaimed, the excitement rushing through me like a pulse. What if we dig deeper? Share those stories with him. Get him to see that these patterns of neglect and gaslighting are part of what he is experiencing now with Cam. A soft breeze whipped through the trees lining our backyard, rustling the leaves like a gentle applause for our quiet conspiratorial exchange. Our grandfather smiled knowingly. Children learn from what they see around them. When those in positions of power refuse to let others be themselves, it creates chaos that can take years to untangle. But perhaps if he sees the truth reflected in our past, he may begin to question the present. Every anecdote I encouraged him to recall, From our childhood adventures to the emotional wounds that had once scarred our family, acted like a thread unraveling. That tangled tapestry of memories began to expose the gaping holes that had formed under Cam's oppressive shadow. Weeks passed, and I felt a palpable shift in the air. The weight of doubt pressed down on my brother, altering the distorted lens through which he viewed his relationship. I began to notice the cracks in his facade. Something fragile began to falter within him, revealing glimmers of a harder truth. During a lunch outing one Saturday, I casually brought up a game I remembered from childhood. You loved playing hide and seek, remember? You would always run to the same spot behind Grandma's hydrangeas, convinced you'd outsmart everyone. He chuckled, the laughter dancing across his face like sunlight, but a moment later, the laughter faded into silence. Yeah, I liked that spot. I could see everyone else, but they couldn't see me. They just thought I was hiding. Exactly, I exclaimed, my heart racing at this unanticipated connection. Sometimes we think we are safe, hiding away, but what if they are watching? What if we are just pretending? Cam makes you feel hidden, doesn't he? I leaned in, locking my gaze with his, a silent challenge hidden in my intensity. Maybe, Mitchell murmured, his eyes reflecting a whirlwind of thoughts, a flicker of realization dancing where adoration used to be. But it's hard, Mia. I don't want to lose him. Losing someone like that can feel scary, I admitted softly, my voice gently wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. But sometimes it's better to lose a fake love than to keep pretending everything is okay. His shoulders slumped slightly, as if bearing a weight that had begun to feel heavier. I just don't know if I can do it. I want to be okay. Then let's figure this out together, step by step, I said, determination surging through my veins, the warmth of camaraderie fanning the flames of my mission. We can pick apart that artificial love until it crumbles. We've got this. The emotional cornerstones of our family were cracking under the strain of truth, the realization palpable between us. I took joy in those moments, the rush of vindication coursing through me as I watched the walls around both my mother and brother begin to tremble. I felt like an architect tearing down a crumbling structure, rebuilding with new frameworks that would hold true with resilience, not frailty. Every conversation brought me closer to where we needed to be. Every careful word was like an arrow, piercing through the thick fog of doubt. And as the days turned into weeks, the growing momentum of change began to feel unstoppable. Just as Cam's grip tightened around this essential piece of my brother, I felt myself becoming a force, a tangible entity bursting with intention. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and now, together, we would begin to uncover the truth beneath the layers of deception that tangled like thorns around his heart. The wind howled outside like a beast, scratching and clawing at the windows of our family home. The storm that raged beyond those walls mirrored the emotions swirling within. My heart raced as I stood in the living room, watching Mitchell and Cam square off under the dim light of the chandelier. The soft glow threw elongated shadows on the walls, their faces illuminated by a light that felt almost otherworldly, highlighting the gravity of the confrontation that simmered just beneath the surface. I was so aware of the storm outside, but even more immersed in the brewing conflict that had finally erupted like a long-suppressed volcano. Do you think I care what you think about me? Mitchell's voice broke a silence so taut it felt like it could snap at any moment. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, and yet, for the first time, he stood tall, embodying a power I had longed to see. You have always belittled me, always made me feel small. I'm done trying to fit into your mold. Just like you did to Mom. The force of his words reverberated through the room, causing my heart to swell with a mixture of pride and anxiety. Memories flooded my mind, Mitchell as the timid boy, around 10 or so, playing with the toy cars while Cam commanded the room, every laugh and jeer forcing him further into the shadows. I had always wanted this moment to unfold, but now that it was before me, I was paralyzed by fear. Cam's face twisted in response to Mitchell's outburst, the veneer of charm he always wore cracking just slightly, revealing the darkness underneath, the shadow of a predator unveiled. You are never enough for me, he spat, nearly foaming at the mouth. You've always been weak, Mitchell, a disappointment. The anger flared around the room, igniting hidden tensions I thought I had buried. I had often stood by, wishing things were different, but this wasn't my battle. I was merely a spectator, caught in the cascading waves of their strife. I held my breath, the moment stretching endlessly, every second drawing taut on my nerves. Cam's bravado, the confidence he wore like an armor, was disintegrating, unraveling under Mitchell's relentless pursuit of truth. "Maybe I do not need your approval," Mitchell shouted, the crack in his voice now filled with quakes of newfound determination. "Maybe I am enough as I am." It was as if I had never heard him use that tone before. His eyes shone, reflecting the storm outside as if he too had become a part of it. The laughter that escaped him, mingling with the tumult outside, sent shivers down my spine. It was both liberating and haunting, a sound that echoed through our childhood, playful yet tinged with echoes of tears. "Enough," Cam scoffed, his irritation morphing into something derisive. "You think you are enough. You think living under my shadow for all these years has not turned you into a replica. You are molded from my failures, from my shortcomings." Anger dripped from his words, bitter and sharp. Each one felt like a dagger thrown with the intention to hurt, an attempt to slice through his brother's hard-won armor. But Mitchell stood firm. I could see the tightness in his shoulders ease, a grip of newfound liberation rising like the swell of a tide. The years of silence had cracked open a door he long thought was shut forever. "I am not your project," Mitchell declared, voice rising again, imbued with a strength I had never expected to witness. "I am not here to fulfill your vision of who I should be. You never saw me, did you? You have never cared to." Each word fell like a hammer, crashing through the delicate guise of familial love that had always felt more like a chokehold than support. "Well, I see myself now. I see who I want to be, and it is not you." In that moment, a tension hung, a weighty silence wrapped around us, and as I stood frozen, I felt the cool breeze crackle like static electricity. I thought the air was electrified, a result of the brewing tempest outside, but I quickly realized it was the explosive confrontation occurring right before me. Mitchell stepped forward, a step laden with courage rather than aggression, and it filled me with goosebumps. He looked akin to a warrior preparing for battle. Calmness radiated from him, a release of frustration that was overwhelming yet beautiful. It quivered deep within my chest, manifesting as both fear and exhilaration. As Cam struggled to catch his breath, words failing him, I could almost see his tightly woven armor of arrogance unravel piece by piece. The turmoil within him flared, anger, disbelief, vulnerability. Each crack in his composure was compelling and terrifying. "You think this makes you strong, standing against me with those childish emotions?" Cam's voice faltered, but he fought to regain his footing. "You're just angry because you want my approval and can't attain it. Your approval means nothing to me anymore." Mitchell's fortitude stood like a lighthouse amidst a brewing storm, defying the dark currents that swirled around it. His eyes were fierce, shining bright with the fire of true passion. "Why would I want to chase after something that only tears me down?" Each word resonated in my heart like a drumbeat, reminding me of the years of turmoil. Mitchell was shedding his skin, letting go of years of feeling less than years spent under Cam's harsh glare. "Then who do you think you are?" Cam snapped, a final grasp at retaining control. "You are just a broken figure, shadowed by your own insecurities. Before I came along, you were nothing." The disdain in his tone twisted the knife deeper into the fabric of family, and I could see the painful reality cutting both sides. For a moment, the tension became palpable, gone between the brothers, and I almost dreaded the fallout. "I am American-born, raised in the same house as you, blood of your blood, but I will not be defined by your idea of who I should be," Mitchell asserted, and as each syllable poured forth, the storm inside me echoed the tempest outside. The wind howled louder, rattling the windows, perhaps mirroring Cam's desperation. In that moment filled with fury and fervor, Mitchell exuded bravery, and a profound hope flickered within me. "Look at you," Cam hissed, regaining just a fraction of his composure. "You are nothing without me. Your whole life has been a misguided chase for validation. You don't realize it yet, but you need me." Those words curled around the room like a serpent, poised to strike. I felt my stomach turn at the venom embedded within. It was another attempt to pull Mitchell down, and yet he stood his ground, a silent soldier beneath the storm clouds. "Not anymore," Mitchell replied with restraint, his voice the low rumble of thunder. "I will make my own choices, and when I do, it will be with my own will. Your twisted sense of power no longer has a grip on my life." It felt as though he had stepped into a new light, shedding layers of an old self that had always existed in the shadow of Cam's expectations. I could hear the flicker of hope, a vibrato rising from the depths of his voice. With every new proclamation, I clung to the hope that the tide was turning. Mitchell had not only declared his autonomy, but had begun to wrest himself away from the perpetual storm. I could almost envision the edges of his burden fraying, unspooling into the abyss, dissolved by his refusal to remain shackled to a legacy that only brought pain. Memories of our childhood, smiles, laughter, even the tears, swirled in my mind, and I felt echoes of their laughter dance through the air. As the wind continued to batter the outside world, I realized that the real storm had been building within those walls for years. The overwhelming need for liberation crackled within me as if synchronizing with Mitchell's newfound strength. "You think you are free," Cam blustered, desperation starting to pool beneath his bravado. "You are nothing without me, brother. You are a pale imitation of what I had planned. You are lost." But with each wave of Cam's words, I saw Mitchell grow stronger, and that depth of conviction had dismantled the foundations of fear. "I am not lost, Cam," he shot back, grounding his words in certainty. "I just found my way out of your twisted path." The wind outside roared fiercely, making the walls tremble in unity with the tempestuous exchange before me, and I realized the fierce power of having a voice, no longer bound by the chains of expectation and shame. As their battle played out before me, two brothers intertwined in a storm of emotion, I felt a bolt of freedom clench my heart. Maybe, just maybe, this night would change everything forever. Mitchell stood amidst the tempest, both a man reborn and a beacon for all of us, yearning for liberation from deeper cages. I took a breath as the acknowledgement of truth bound us, a moment suspended in time, as if the heavens themselves recognized the strength brewing within him. Finally, he could step into the light, leaving behind the shadows and storms of his past. The silence in the room felt almost tangible, wrapping around us like a thick blanket. I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding in my chest as I observed Mitchell, who stood across from me, his broad shoulders lax and his jaw set, both defiant and free. This moment resonated deep within me. It was full of hope yet laced with the remnants of everything we had been through. Mitchell took a deep breath, and the sound echoed in the stillness. I watched him closely, eager to seize this milestone in our tumultuous history. "You really did it, didn't you?" I finally broke the silence, my voice soft yet confident. "You got out from under her thumb." He turned his gaze toward me, and for just a moment the familiar shadows flickered across his face, doubt, fear. But then something shifted. A warmth filled his eyes, and that brief flicker of vulnerability morphed into something strong and fierce. "Yeah, I did." His voice was steadier than I'd ever heard it before. "I never thought I would actually say no to her. I always felt like I had to be the good son." With his admission hanging in the air, I felt a swell of triumph surge through my chest. "You are a good son, Mitchell, but you've been a good son to her, not to yourself," I responded, feeling the weight of my own words as they lingered. Our upbringing had taught us that sacrifice was synonymous with love, but in those years, love had become twisted. "Choosing yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you brave." He chuckled, a deep sound that surprised even him. "Brave? That's a new one, especially coming from you." His eyes twinkled with a mixture of recognition and teasing. "I thought I was always the reckless one." "Recklessness and bravery are two sides of the same coin, Mitchell. You just needed a shove in the right direction. And tonight, I think we both got a little push," I replied, a fire igniting deep within me as I realized that by standing together, we had both claimed our autonomy. Mitchell ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized as anxiety creeping back in. "But what now? What do we do about everything else?" His voice dropped to a whisper, trailing off into uncertainty. Behind his bravado lay the remnants of fear. I didn't blame him. The chaos that had ruled our lives would not disappear overnight. "We take one step at a time," I stated plainly, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is just the beginning for us. It feels scary, but you have to believe in the power of our new beginning. There are no rules now, no inherited chaos." He stared at me, his gaze steady but still uncertain. "You sound so sure. I can't help but feel like it's too good to be true." Taking a step closer, I lowered my voice. "Zero, you're right to be cautious. We've been played long enough, but this time we've taken back the control. We can redefine what family means for us. We'll watch each other's backs." The assurance in my own words gave me strength. I could see a new light forming in his eyes. "Sometimes I think we let this place mold us into what everyone else expected. I don't want to live like that anymore," he confessed, his voice trembling with an honesty I appreciated. "What if we just did whatever we wanted? Let the ghosts of our past fall away," I encouraged him. "A life not ruled by other people's expectations. Imagine that for a second." I could see the flicker of excitement ignite in his eyes. "We'll start small. What do you want to do?" He looked thoughtful for a moment. "Want to go to the beach. I want to feel the sun on my face without worrying about anyone judging me for being irresponsible." "Then that's what we will do," I said firmly. "Let's take a trip, just you and me. No one else, not even Deed. We need this time to lay the groundwork for our new lives." Mitchell smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly as he considered the prospect. "You think she'll let us?" "I don't give a damn what she thinks," I said with a dismissive wave of my hand. "We've cared about her opinion long enough. Now it's time to care about our own." I could feel the wall of oppression within me beginning to crumble. Each word marked another brick falling away. A fresh sense of purpose enveloped us, and the shadows that danced in the corners of the room seemed less daunting all of a sudden. I noticed the way he stood taller, his spine straightening with every breath he took. "You're right. I guess tonight was a wake-up call for a lot of things." "Exactly," I replied, feeling buoyed by a wave of excitement ourselves, sweeping closer to a place of infinite possibilities. "You did it. You've chosen yourself." "I didn't do it alone," he countered, the gratitude shading his voice like the dawn breaking at the end of a long night. "You stood by me. This would have been impossible, facing her alone." His gaze softened, and in that moment he seemed to recognize the depth of the bond we shared. "You took the first leap. I guess you were the one to push through the door." His admission brought warmth to my cheeks, and I resisted the urge to brush it off, understanding how crucial this moment was for both of us. "Well, someone had to. You were trapped in your head, usually running scenarios of what she would think or how she would react. And don't think I wasn't deep in that headspace, too. I learned to navigate that labyrinth for so long that I finally realized it was nothing but a trap. So I blew the thing up, and now it's rubble." "You're ruthless when you need to be," he said, a hint of admiration in his tone. "Maybe I need to adopt that energy. Just don't forget to pair it with love for yourself," I insisted gently, reaching out to grasp his arm. "The courage we're talking about isn't just about the fight against everything toxic that held us down. It's about embracing who we desire to be, unrestricted and allowed to grow." He nodded slowly, the swirling emotions crafting a new resilience between us. As the hazy weight of our shared history began to lift, we both inhaled deeply, our breaths merging with a renewed sense of purpose. "What about Mom?" he asked, pulling back momentarily. "What if she tries to put a wedge between us again?" "I think we're finally strong enough to overcome her games," I asserted, my tone firm yet compassionate. "It won't be simple. It's been her entire life to cradle her ideal of control over family. But we've had a taste of freedom tonight, and it's sweeter than any binding force." "Yeah, I just hope she accepts that," he murmured, thoughts dancing behind his eyes. "Acceptance has never been her strong suit." "Acceptance isn't her choice anymore. It's ours," I replied resolutely, feeling the weight of my declaration settle into the air. "And if not, we'll just have to keep walking further into the new dawn we've created." I could see him processing that, the wheels turning in his mind as he began to conceive of a life beyond the trauma of the past. "You know what, Mia? I really want to start living more for me and less for her." "Me too," I said with a sincerity that echoed in my core. "Believe me, I've noticed the way you've held your breath around her, and I refuse to let that continue. The more space we take up now, the easier it gets." He chuckled again, the sound more relaxed this time, a hint of mischief threading through his voice. "You make me sound like a toddler needing permission to play, and trust me, I am far from a toddler. I just want to be myself." "I fully support that. In fact, allow yourself to dream. What would your ultimate life look like?" I prompted, wanting to open this door wide for him. "Easy, just a quiet life." "Nothing too extravagant," he mused with a far-off gaze, typing into his vision the life he wanted even though I could see hesitation weaving in and out. "Maybe a small house near the ocean, with a little garden and room for a dog. I want the mornings to be filled with coffee and sound of waves crashing, and the evenings to roll in with laughter and joy." "Now, that sounds amazing," I breathed, letting the vision wash over me like sunlight breaking through clouds. "How close do you think we are to that?" "I guess that depends on how much magic we can make," he admitted, a glimmer of hope lighting up his voice. "And how far we are willing to fight for it. Then let's make a pact," I suggested, my heart swelling with fierce determination. "Let's promise to run toward whatever this is, no matter how far or how fast. We've fought long enough. The time is now." He extended his hand across the distance that had once seemed insurmountable and gripped mine firmly. The warmth of his touch surged through me, a shared promise solidified in one motion that felt as monumental as the confrontation we had just weathered. With that grip, we had taken control of our destiny, eyeing the path ahead. Like two warriors emerging from the ashes of conflict, we raised our heads high, prepared to face whatever lay before us. The past might linger like a stubborn shadow, but we were two steadfast souls, embarking on a bold journey toward a newfound freedom where our respective dreams would finally unfold unfettered by old bindings. The future glittered before us, vibrant, chaotic, yet filled with radiant promises. And together we would forge a path, leaving echoes of the past behind days turned into weeks, and it felt as though we were slowly breathing life into the air that had been so heavy with silence and fear. Each moment, each shared glance seemed to pulse with newfound energy, an electric wave of unguarded possibility swirling within us. The shadows that had long loomed over our interactions were starting to lift, revealing a vibrant landscape of hope and connection. In those weeks, I cherished every conversation with my brother, Mitchell. They had a richness and depth I had yearned for, a stark contrast to the stiff and strained exchanges we once navigated, guarded and careful, as if every wrong word could ignite an argument or a flare-up of emotional wounds. One evening was particularly special. The sun dipped low in the horizon, casting hues of orange and pink across the sky, bathing our backyard in warmth. It was an invitation to revel in the beauty of the moment, to allow ourselves to be free, if only temporarily. The backyard, once a mere piece of land beneath our feet, now felt like sanctuary. We settled into the familiar wicker chairs, which had long sat untouched, drowning in layers of dust, and I was struck by how vibrant this area seemed, as if it too had been yearning for rejuvenation. Mitchell sat across from me, his brow creased in concentration as he worked on a piece of jewelry. It was fascinating to watch him translate his thoughts into delicate shapes, the metal reflecting the colors of the sunset like a canvas alive with energy. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "I always thought I had to be someone else for Cam, but I am realizing now that I can be who I want to be." His voice dropped to a hush, yet it vibrated with such strength it felt like a roar. I looked at him, really looked, and saw his spirit piecing itself back together, glinting like the jewelry he so lovingly crafted. "That's a monumental statement, Mitchell. I know it doesn't feel easy, but you're doing it. You're finding yourself again," I replied, my heart swelling with pride. He nodded, his fingers deftly weaving a thin wire through a collection of tiny, colorful beads. "Remember how I used to talk about wanting to create a line of my own, all those ideas and sketches? It feels like a different lifetime now, but I want to try again. I think I can." The determination in his eyes sent warmth blossoming through me. I wanted desperately to be a part of this rebirth in whatever way he needed. "I can help you, you know. We can brainstorm together, come up with ideas. You've got this talent just waiting to break free," I added, leaning forward in my chair, feeling the moment thrum with expectancy. He paused, color rising in his cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and hope wrestling within him. "Really? I mean, you want to help? Of course. I want to see you succeed, to flourish. Let's turn your ideas into reality," I encouraged him, feeling a rush of enthusiasm cascading through me. It was such a small endeavor, really, but it felt monumental in the context of all we had gone through. With every bead he threaded, every design that took shape, it felt like we were both constructing something beautiful. Not just the jewelry, but the very foundation of our relationship, mending it brick by brick. I remembered how stifled our conversations were before, silenced by Cam's toxic influence, and here we were now, nurturing each other with open hearts. I glanced sideways at him, catching sunlight glinting off the intricate pieces he was arranging. "What do you think about having an official launch? Maybe a small gathering to showcase your work and invite a few friends." The thought of it made his eyes widen in disbelief. "A launch? That sounds way too fancy for me. I mean, who would even come? Anyone who cares and wants to support you." I laughed lightly, trying to dispel his worries. "You can start small and work your way up." "I think I'd love that," he finally conceded, his voice almost a whisper but filled with warmth. That was the moment I knew things had shifted. It was as if a light had been found in the depths of anguish. One that had flickered out of existence was now sparking back to life. Possibly now, this path could lead us somewhere rich and full of promise rather than the barren landscape weighted down by the emotional abuse we had endured. As we continued to share laughter and dreams under the painted sky, I couldn't help but feel the winds of change stirring through both of us. There was something liberating about it. Every chuckle, every excited suggestion was like shaking free the cobwebs that had clung to my heart for far too long. I looked at Mitchell, watching him, transfixed as he revealed a smile that seemed to carry the weight of newfound hope. But amidst the relief of our budding relationship, there lingered ghosts from our past, shadows on the periphery. I thought of Deed, whose calls for family gatherings now felt like foreshadowings, echoes of uncertainty vibrating in the air. It was odd, the realization that she, too, was facing her own reckoning. Each time she reached out, I sensed her disorientation, her navigating through the quagmire of emotions caused by the disarray she had sown within our family. "Do you think she's realizing the impact of everything?" Mitchell asked suddenly, drawing me from my thoughts. I took a deep breath, finding it difficult to discern if the pity I had once felt had morphed into something more complicated. "It feels like she is, but that's just the beginning. She's got to confront her own reflection, her choices. I want to meet her with resilience, to help her see us not as victims but as emerging from it stronger than before." He nodded solemnly, awareness broadening his features. "It's a bizarre twist of fate, right? As she tries to clamp down on the family, she's pushing us away instead." His voice carried a mix of sympathy and conviction, and I wondered if it was the peace we were finding that led him to view her situation with a clear eye. "It's sad, and it's frustrating too, but what can we do?" I replied softly. "What we need is to transform those chains binding us into beautiful threads of color, to chart a path toward healing and understanding. A new type of honesty." The chance to reshape our family narrative was within reach, a vivid tapestry shimmering just beyond the shadows. We could take the past, full of pain and regret, and weave it into something vibrant, something filled with hope and warmth. My thoughts lingered on the specter of my father. Had I really become him? In my attempts to guide Mitchell away from the shadows of despair, was I also channeling the very essence of the man I had always seen as a harbinger of chaos? "Sometimes," I said, glancing at the sunset, which was beginning to melt into the horizon, "it feels as if I'm becoming someone I didn't expect, cycling through the pieces of my parents. I saw the way Dad lost himself, and I'm scared I might be walking similar paths more than I'd like to admit." Mitchell's eyes met mine, filled with an intelligence that made me feel more seen than I realized I wanted to be. "But you're not him, Mia. You're choosing differently. You're bringing light where there was despair." I appreciated his attempt to ease my fears and nodded thoughtfully. "And in every choice I make, I see that I'm reflecting it back to you. I'm guiding us away from the darkness, one lovely moment at a time." "Yeah, it's like we're building a new blueprint for ourselves," he affirmed, pouring fresh enthusiasm into the evening as he placed the knots of jewelry on the wooden table. The sunlight that continued to fade bathed us in softness, and I felt a calmness that began to fill the voids between memories of hurt and confusion. Each piece of jewelry on that table felt like a symbol, glistening without the weight of negativity tethered to it. "I can't wait to see where we take this," I mused, anticipation bubbling as I pictured possibilities dancing in the air around us. "I believe in us, in me, in you. We're going to get stronger from this." "We'll be stronger together," he echoed, voice steady, hope vibrant. There was a depth in his words as if he was weaving another layer into our connection, a reminder that every step moving forward would embody the resilience we had nurtured, united in embracing the light that shone brightly over the tumultuous past. For what felt like the first time in a long while, I felt ready, not just to heal but to thrive. The world ahead was vast, filled with uncertainty, but it also shimmered with potential. As the last rays slipped below the horizon, the dusk wrapped around us like a reassuring embrace, promising the dawn of new beginnings, the arrival of colors we had yet to unfurl.